Well, hello, money lover. Joining me on the podcast today is George Kinder. Hopefully, I can call him a friend. George is a past guest. He's an author and thought leader, and he's known internationally as the father of life planning, which is a body of knowledge and a practice many financial advisors, including myself, embody that seeks to enable people to fulfill their life's legacies through financial empowerment. George has been a mindfulness teacher for 35 years. And the first time I interviewed him on this podcast was in episode 150 back in November of 2019. But today we're here to talk about George's new book, The Three Domains of Freedom. It's available now, and it combines the learning he's gained over his lifetime to empower readers to experience profound freedoms in their lives and establish a fiduciary culture across civilization. Welcome, George.
Hey, it's great to be back, Hillary. Thanks so much.
You have boundless energy. I'm excited to talk about your third book, or this book. I know you've written many books, but last time you came, we talked about how good financial plans enable life goals and what freedom means to you, and we mentioned the three quintessential, globally known Kinder questions that you came up with to help people get clarity about what matters to them. And I do, again, want to encourage my listeners to go back and listen to episode 150 of this podcast. But since then, you've written a new book, The
Yeah.
Three Domains of Freedom. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, and I'm going to walk people through it linearly, but let's talk about freedom for the purposes of life planning in this book. How do you define freedom and how does that relate to money?
Yeah, freedom is so cool. I mean, I had someone yesterday, the day before, ask me, well, what's the difference, happiness and freedom? And because a lot of people are thinking happiness is something that, we really ought to know about. And what I realized is hearing that question is most people long for freedom. I don't know that a lot of people long for happiness. Maybe if they're depressed, they might, but
Happiness is sort of fleeting.
And for freedom, feel like, I've got it. And I feel lucky this year. My book is one of three, I hope, re relatively renowned books of freedom. One of them was by the Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz on economics, money
Mhm.
freedom. And another was by Timothy Snyder, and he's talking about political freedom. My book, the way that I think of it, that it's different, is I think of freedom not only in those terms, but I think freedom is something we experience.
Mm.
And I'm interested in all of it because you've got to put it all together to make it happen in the world, to make it happen here in your own life. But freedom, what I wanted to explore in this book, and partly because of what my um, life has been about. My life has been about teaching mindfulness. It's been about training financial advisors all over the world
Right.
in delivering their clients into their dream of, and you put legacy, and that's great, their legacy or something like that. And I usually put dream of freedom. It sounds like way out there, but it is what we try to do. We try to get them so excited that, and that's in a way the key. We in life planning, what we try to do is to find a way to give our clients the experience of that freedom before they even have it, so that they go, that's what I want. And that's why I'm here with you. And then the third thing is, why aren't we doing that in civilization? Right? I
You
mean,
jumped the gun, George. You
yeah,
got there
yeah, we'll get
early.
there. But that's the third. So the third one, so the subtitles are each moment is yours. You're meant to live in freedom.
Mhm.
Your life is yours. You're meant to live in freedom there as well. And the third one is this challenging one, but I love it. It's called Civilization is Yours. We're meant to live in freedom there. And that's
Uh,
both living in it and then making sure it happens for everybody.
I know. And I feel like it's the first and the third that people are so far from experiencing freedom in. And yet it's really an interesting juxtaposition because we sort of shove people into this life where the highest aspiration is to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, and their parents press them. And, we have kids self-exiting in high school because the pressure is so high. And this is the path to happiness. And yet all of us seem to know at some point that's not actually the path to freedom,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I don't know what we're really doing about that.
Yeah.
problem because money is a real need. And you talk about this in your books. You don't eschew the reality of financial resources. Can you say a little bit about how you marry those concepts, freedom,
Yeah,
and yet, yes, enable yourself with real dollars and cents?
absolutely. And I think I mean, this is how my whole career was formed, was around this concept that these two things belong together in a way. But I want to say in preface to that, that the extremes are really important. And that if I look at who were my teachers, who were the most profound people that I encountered, they were people who lived lives of poverty. They were people who
Oh,
chose to be poor. And the reason that they are mentors for me is that they worked out their trips with money. Money was not complicated for them. And so many of the people you work with and I work with, it gets so complicated, you know? And so a lot of the trick is, and a lot of what we try to do and what we do in life planning is, let's make it simple down to who you really want to be. That's
mm-hmm.
really where it's meant to be. So you can think of getting lost in money issues. We all do. The way that we counter that in life planning is we ask those three questions back in 150. Go look for it. But we ask those three questions,
The
and
what's your life really for questions.
exactly. What's your life really for? What would really make your life sing? What would give you the most profound meaning? What would give you a thrill to be living this life and to feel that it was deeply meaningful? And so that's what we do. We specialize in that. That's what I train people in for 30 years in 30 countries all over the world, thousands of people and thousands of advisors. And the notion was, I wanted to leverage my skills and give them to everybody. So let's make sure that everybody lives that way. And so I think to me, the answer is let's get everybody life planned. I've thought a lot about guaranteed income. I've thought about civilization a lot. People have these experiments in guaranteed income. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. They show different things. Well, let's have everybody who gets guaranteed income have a life plan and make it really simple. And so that they're actually living who they want to be. That answers it.
And so your book gives people a pathway there. It's a stepping stone model, freedom in the moment, freedom in your life, freedom in civilization. So let's begin with freedom in the moment. Can you talk about your as lived experience of mastering the present moment? What does that actually mean?
Um, the subtitle is Each Moment is Yours. And how many moments do we find ourselves going, "Oh, I wish I wasn't here. Why do I have to do this? What trapped in some to-do list or other, or something that civilization or our family, our relationships have trapped us in, our work has trapped us in.
Mm-hmm.
And what's extraordinary, I've been practicing mindfulness for over 50 years, since college, um, and I practice it for several hours a day. So I do a lot of it. But what each moment is yours. Um, when you do mindfulness, what it does is that it frees the mind, what you're attempting to do. So many of us have tried to do it. It's so difficult, right? You go back to the breath and you go, "Oh, I can't do it. I got these text messages coming in," and you run to your text messages and all that. And I just can't do it today. All right. Well,
I
we all
wonder
feel
what went wrong. I was meditating right next to my iPhone.
right on. And so that happens to it even happens to me periodically after many, many years. But the truth is that those moments of where the fire alarm seems going to be going off right next to you, those moments are the cutting edge for you of, are you here? And are you capable of being here and of being relaxed and being at ease and being authentic, being natural in your life? And when those moments occur where you get buzzed, no, you can't. You get called in this other direction. So how many thousands of moments do we have just in an hour? And what mindfulness does is it clears the decks. And the more that you do it, the clearer they get. So
Hmm.
what it does is it trains you so that you have greater and greater ability to be right here, right now, because of the focus it insists on, and because of all the times that you fail being here, and having every time you fail, you're getting a little lesson in emotional intelligence, right? You
Mm.
missed it. Oh, I see. I was clinging to that over there. I got all shaky about this over here. I'm going to come back to the moment. So every single time you do that, mindfulness is the greatest teacher of emotional intelligence. And because it just strips away all the things that distract you from being at ease and being here. So I've found that I did a series of books, as you know, which are not the topic here. I did a series of 5 books on being in nature, being inspired by Thoreau and some Zen poets, and really living in nature so that every moment nature was my teacher. And I think that's, if you want to know what mindfulness is, if you want to know what living in the moment is, walk along the beach, take your walk along the walk, along the in the fields or out in the woods, and don't think. Just experience being there and love every moment of it. Love the wind as it touches you, the different senses of temperature, the stride that you take. Just be in the moment. That's mindfulness, and that's the way we're meant to live. That's authentic. That's being here right now, and you can do that in every moment by practicing this practice of mindfulness, taking on the challenges of how you get lost, how you get pulled away.
What would you say to a business owner or executive who has children and struggles to sleep 6 hours an evening, a night, uh, when considering a 2 hour a day mindfulness practice? I mean, how do you think about the opportunity cost of your time and your accomplishments? Said differently, how have you accomplished so much over these years while you meditate so much? You spend so much time in the moment.
It's it baffles me, Hillary.
No, that's not the right answer, George.
No, I actually attribute a huge amount of it to the mindfulness practice. That there's a in the last few books I've written, I've made sure that I put a different map of time and space into them. I call it a map of mindfulness. And the reason I do that is that I think the map of time and space that we see, then the scientists study, is wrong, is inaccurate. Because if you think about it, it's primarily a map of the past and the future. You see this huge oval and broken into little boxes and cells. So you've got that huge oval, that's supposed to be our reality. Okay, but what about the present moment? When you really are in the present moment, do you feel like you're all chopped up into those boxes and cells? That
No.
CEO that you're talking about, yeah, they're feeling it because they're getting attached to different things. But when we're really in the moment, oh gosh, I mean, think about being in the beach, doing something you love. I mean, it feels spacious. Time expands. You want to be there forever. I mean, it's something very different. So what I realized was, it's kind of one of these obvious things that Einstein used to talk about. All the brilliant questions are like childlike questions, and this is a childlike question. Have you ever experienced a moment of freedom in the past? And the
No.
answer is no, right? No, you've only
When I
experienced
was there, it was the present.
yeah, exactly. You only experience in the present moment. So if that's the case, then I mean, we really know it. The present moment's the only moment that is real, that we've really experienced.
Right.
That's stunning because everything we do is based on the past and the future. Everything we learn, the way we run our businesses, it's all based on the past and the future. So I put together a map that puts the present moment at the center of the map. It looks like an hourglass.
It looks
And
like an hourglass.
yeah, and what happens is the present moment is what's real. And out of that present moment, we create the past and the future.
Mhm.
And then when you really focus on the present moment, what we were just talking about, that expansiveness that you feel, that's what the realm of what I call virtue. It's a realm of spirit, it's a realm of consciousness itself, the kind of the deepest layers of it. So it's a profound realm. And um, so you're asking about the CEO or COO and how do they, so if you get life planned and you figure out who is it you really want to be, nothing should hold you back.
Mm.
And there's something when you're driven by your to-do list and driven by those text messages, you're not living the life you were meant to live. And most of us want to live a simpler life and really want to be here in the moment.
Can I ask you a different question, but related about mastering the moment? Many of the conversations I have with high net worth investors
Yeah,
involve their stress and anxiety about financial markets, the economy. Unfortunately, this month it's politics. Um, right. And that all it's all different versions of the sky might be falling, Hillary. Now, there's an answer to that question because the sky might be falling,
right.
right? So far in society, we've figured out every time how to pick up the pieces and regrow.
Yeah,
Um, but what would mastering the present moment access for a person burdened with those kinds of concerns that really do hold them back?
absolutely. Well, really, my belief and my experience is that the more that you experience freedom on all of these levels, the more that you can address those economic levels, civilizational levels, political levels. And I think they're very important. I think they're extremely important right now, maybe more important than they've ever been. And so I will share that with I would share that with a CEO. But the what if you can't live in moments of freedom, if you can't find freedom in individual moments because you're so driven, you're not going to see the world clearly enough
Right.
even to know how to vote, really. I mean, you just aren't. You're going to be driven by, fears and anxieties and stress and all the rest. So having a mastery of the present moment, what mindfulness is the mastery of the present moment. Most people don't realize that. Mindfulness is the mastery of the present moment. So if the present moment is all that ever really exists, it's like the most extraordinary thing you could do. And why aren't we doing it in every classroom? Why isn't it, kind of part of what we're all taught? So it's going to help you make the decisions that you want to make. And then the second layer, and I have this, yeah, you see, I'm creating an oval going this way. It's because it's the arc of our life. It's like we're born over here and we rise up, into the sky eventually, and maybe,
Or
but
the ground, as it were.
maybe it's the ground, yeah. But there's an arc to it, and Joseph Campbell called it the hero's journey. And we all have it. We all
Mm,
have a passion to live something that's extraordinary. And
yes.
if we feel that we're not on target with that right now, I mean, the cool thing about life planning, I I I think it was extremely rare that I didn't have someone absolutely thrilled with their life within a matter of months. So they felt like they were either living in the dream that they meant to live in or well on their way. And that's what life planning does. So if you keep your eyes on the prize of who you really want to be, you're going to feel that freedom. And that means you're going to see things more clearly. And then there's the whole civilization piece, which we'll come to, I know.
Yes, well, you keep trying to jump the gun. So thank
I don't
you.
want
So what you just said, and this last answer was a great segue to mastering one's life journey, as I use the word legacy.
right.
Uh, how do you know if you think you married the right person, went to the right school? I mean, George, you went to Harvard. You must have felt like you were on your way. How do you know if you're not living the life that is your true destiny, your life of true freedom?
Yeah. And I mean, I've had a lot of accomplishments, it's true. And Harvard was an early one. But the truth was also that when I was at Harvard, I was all up here. I was all in my brain. Nobody believes that I was a math major when I entered Harvard because all my work is about emotional intelligence. And I didn't know what I was talking about in a way. So we all have, and that's one of the beauties about life. We're constantly learning, hopefully, to be better people um, and to be better functioning who we are. And that's how civilization actually grows, I think, is by each of us doing that. So you're asking me, how do we do it when, again, the essence of the question was if someone How do you know that you're on your dream, that you're living your dream of freedom, right? I think getting a life plan is really important. I think looking at those three questions
Okay.
and keeping them keeping them on your refrigerator door. Getting what I think is really helpful is getting a mentor. And one mentor that can be really helpful is a financial life planner, someone who knows life planning and also can hold you to the finances so that you're really putting what you want most together. I think that, as I said early on with guaranteed income, I think this belongs for everybody. I think it's really important for everybody to be on target with their life plan. There's, everybody has dreams. Why should we not be living them?
Everybody does have dreams. Some people have more sort of more aspiration for influence than others, but correct. Everyone has dreams. And where we financial advisors meet them is what's possible given the resources I have now, and how can I continue to create that, right? I find that some people get attached to a particular way that it looks, right?
Right,
When it really is an experiential aspiration.
right.
Speaking of that, what other hurdles have you seen people struggle with or surmount when it comes to pursuing their life plan, the freedom of their own life's journey?
Yeah, I think a couple of things, and it takes us back to the first domain of freedom. Each moment is yours, and the third domain of freedom, which is civilization. Yeah, I keep going there. The first domain. So the obstacles come up are, when we do this thing we call lighting the torch in life planning, and in the life planning that I teach anyway for the registered life planner designation. And lighting the torch means answering those three questions, and then your kind of life planner puts them together in a way that is so inspiring.
Mm.
You can't believe it. You just can't. Tears will come to your eyes. You'll shake. Uh, you might get fearful. There's an emotional response. Usually, it's very positive, but it can be intermingled. It's so powerful, and the we put together a vision that's so powerful and so realistic that you can't say no. And we support that realism by saying, "Don't worry about the money. I can help you make that happen." Let's go to it. So having a mentor who can settle down some of the stuff that you go through, having a mindful practice that strips away the emotional dissonance. And then the third thing is civilization keeps getting in the way. I want to talk
Let's
about
do it.
it.
Let's
All
do
right.
it. If it's okay, I'd like to read a quote from you the
Oh,
last time we spoke.
oh my. Okay. Yeah, cool.
You got really animated when you said, "It's time." Why do we live in a world that's flawed? Why is there still corruption in this world? We've had 250 years of brilliant entrepreneurial endeavor coming out of the Industrial Revolution. How come at the top of our hierarchies of power, we aren't finding wisdom at the top of every one of them? Shouldn't this be happening? My argument is yes. And we should all be flourishing and not wrestling with a polarized politic and with darkness. Let's end corruption forever. Let's end war. Let's end disrespect between people. And let's just take it on and realize that this is what people want.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's powerful. You know that you,
Okay, how has your thinking evolved since? And how does this new book address that very thought?
really, it started in that moment. I mean, I am necessarily in the moment with you, but that passion at that, that recognition of that, and all of that came out of, as you knew back then, I'd just gone on a world tour and I traveled all over the world and I'd seen rich countries and poor countries and democratic countries and dictatorships. I was in Hong Kong when the kids were marching through the streets saying we want democracy,
Oh,
and I was in a conference where I was talking about democracy and pulling out from them what they dreamed of, what they really wanted as a golden civilization, this community. And at the back of the room, two-thirds of the way through the conversation, this dark, deep voice said, "You can't talk about that here." And
oh,
suddenly everybody got really quiet. And we know what's happened to Hong Kong since.
yeah.
So, so my my goal then was to figure out, does everybody want the same thing? And I discovered they did. And they want democracy, they want kindness, they want an end to corruption. And and COVID came, and it knocked me out, but it knocked the world out in a lot of ways. And so we were stuck Zooming together and all this kind of stuff.
I know.
Uh, and so I couldn't travel. And I thought, well, let's get down and dirty. Let's figure out what could we do? What
Right.
would be an answer that would work? And I figured out something. And that's part of what the this book that you've just dived into, The Three Dimensions of Freedom, what it ends with is that there's a very simple way out of this craziness. And we all know it's craziness, out of this craziness that we're in right now. And I don't need to define it, but now we're terrified about AI and there's polarization and news media. Which culture are you in? And is the earth dying on us? Is democracy about to die? All of these things.
Well, it's gotten to the point, George, where no one knows if they can believe what they read.
That's right. The truth and the truth is one of the major things I have in this solution. So, in fact, I think that the standard for truth, we're holding a very low standard for truth in everything, and that the standard for truth should be back to the trials where they say, we want you to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mm.
If our media did that around political things, then all of us, we'd be able to talk with each other. We might disagree, but we'd be able to talk to each other, and we'd be able to debate. And we clearly know what is true and what isn't true, but it's just one of the things. So here's what I figured out was it does go back 250 years, and then it goes back to the beginning of incorporation in America and in England and in the world, where we gave these incredible powers um, to the ownership of stock. And it was an incredible thing. And it helped to go from the, reproducible parts, revolution that was happening
Hmm.
to being able to bring all of that into gathering money, forces, tremendous forces of money. So we could create huge hierarchies of power. And
Hmm.
we got that through capital. We got that through debt. And now we recognize we're already also big corporations get it through media, using media to fund nonprofits to speak their point of view or to have media or their advertising. So huge power.
Well, the democratization of the stock market has been a tremendous, tremendous asset, literally, no pun intended,
Absolutely.
for Main Street. So,
Absolutely.
agree.
Huge, huge, huge. And still, we don't find wisdom and compassion. We don't find it's not the best system. It's a good system. It's an incredible system, but it's not the best system because the best system would bring wisdom and compassion to the top of every hierarchy of power and would filter it all the way down. So I got thinking, this is happening at the base of civilization. It's happening at the base of our institutional life. What if we required, so what if we simply required all of our institutions, government, corporate, nonprofit, to be humane? Just simply required them to be humane. Very simple. And right, I mean, you'd think they'd be that anyway, given they're filled with people.
George, John Lennon said, "You may call me a dreamer."
There you go.
I mean, don't
Definitely.
you think we're trying that?
No, no, we
Uh,
haven't come close. The in the like for instance in the investment movement, we have investment movements for um, ESG, for instance, and we've had ethical investing around for 40 years or more. We have B corporations, we've got Business Roundtable, all of these kinds of things that are attempts to bring greater humanity in, but they're all voluntary, number one, and there's no real
they're
rigor.
voluntary and they're from the outside sort of foisting in. I mean, ESG just tries to control executives and boards of directors with capital.
Exactly, exactly. So my notion was, let's just, it's a single sentence piece
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, you should be. I mean, it's dramatic and in terms of ultimate consequences. And I'm really looking for conferences on this idea. And in fact, that's my next phase of this is to try to get a dozen conferences around this all over the world to be debating this idea. So here's the idea, because your
I'm here.
audience
I'm
is
here for
going,
it.
hey, what's the idea you're talking about? So require institutions to be humane. And it's a single sentence where we require institutions to have a fiduciary obligation to place the truth above their own self-interest, to place democracy above their own self-interest, to place the planet above their own self-interest, to place humanity above their own self-interest. Now, I have it in a shortened form, so it's to place the truth, humanity, democracy, and what was the one I'm missing? But anyway, it's a fiduciary responsibility. And
Mhm.
so instead of fiduciary responsibility just to the shareholders, it's a fiduciary responsibility to humanity, to what we care about, to what makes the earth function, to what makes democracy function. And if we don't have that, then we're building these huge powers that have much more power than that mad King George more than 200 years ago that we fought against to throw off his power. So it's really time for us to do something like this. And what's incredible, this is a time I think the time that I'm most familiar with, closest to this, what's happening right now, is the 1920s.
Oh,
There was a tremendous amount of wealth, right? You had the extremes of wealth, and you had the development of fascism, beginning development of fascism. You had wars happening and armies developing and all this kind of stuff. And then there was a crash. Now we haven't gotten to a crash, but
please
um,
don't predict the Great Depression on my show.
I don't want to. And I'm in there. I'm invested. I'm really invested. So it's not, but the, the truth is that we are in a crisis, and there's a very simple solution. And that is, I call it fiduciary in all things, or fiat.
Hmm.
And I think you'll be seeing, because I've already been talking to people, conferences on debating how would we do this? How could it happen? What do corporations need to do? What does government need to do? What should investors be aware of? What are consumers? But don't we want all of our institutions to be trustworthy and humane?
We do. I think some people want that, George. I think some people want that. Truly, in people who are pursuing enlightenment or at least a good quality life definitely want that. I do think that we still continue to pay homage to, I mean, for example, let's just take the most egregious, which is most politicians, right? We're
Right.
still out there campaigning for them, making signs, voting for them, when in truth it's a system that doesn't, it's not honorable,
No,
right?
that's right. The politicians, we also know that, when you look at the contributions to them, they're hugely bought and bought by huge forces.
Self-interests.
Absolutely, totally self-interest. And
Mhm.
when you get, if it's you and me, and here I'm wearing blue and you're wearing red, here we go. All right. So
I'm wearing autumn or this is sepia, okay? Let's
okay. All right. Well, I'm really kind of purple. But anyway, if you get two people, and if instead of having it be a democracy where people are really debating the ideas and everything, if you get two powerful forces kind of opposing each other, then they're going to tell the people who are relying on them for their political contributions, don't go down that path. Don't go down that path. So there's these absolute boundaries that happen rather than talking, debating, reaching back out to the people, finding out from the scientists what's really going on. And so one of the things when you talk about that every institution should place humanity, the earth, the truth, and democracy first, I think that would solve it. It might take a generation of implementation, but I think it would solve it because you the truth is so huge. You couldn't have two competing truths out there the way we have right now in the media. And if it's all for democracy, you wouldn't have huge powers controlling um, kind of the people's vote in a way. And you would want people to be informed. You'd want them to know what the truth is and what to choose, how to choose. So,
Well, I'm concerned that even that word democracy has been weaponized a little bit. And I know that's not the way that you're meaning it, but you're talking about rule by the people, representation at the level of governance, correct?
well, I love the republic idea, but yes, it's an intermingling of those two, clearly.
Yeah. I've realized two things in this conversation. One is that I used to relate to money as finite. And in my transformative financial experience of my life, I realized truly, and I embody that it is infinite. And I teach that. And that what you're saying about mastering the moment, sorry to go back 2 steps, I'm going to come back to civilization,
You bet.
has to do with maybe a similar realization about the present moment being infinite, right? And I talked about the opportunity cost of time, sleep, meditation, being productive, doing things, getting things done. That maybe there's something to be realized there at that juxtaposition, right? If wealth is infinite, so too is the present moment. As long as I'm here and breathing and my heart is pumping. Um, and the second thing, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that your book and your message is not a how to for civilization to get from the place it's at, which I do think is two different things. There's what we say and think in the media. If you log into Facebook or read about what's happening in civilization, I think it's very extremist in its negativity, that the reality is not, it's more balanced than that. But your book isn't a how-to get from wherever it is that we are to a place of fiduciary democracy and truth. But your message is just embody that in
Absolutely.
this present moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the one of the things in that final passage, that final section, I do have the fiduciary legislation, which I think would be an incredible way because we need some boundaries as civilization. But the bulk of that chapter is about celebrating where we are and really feeling the beauty of it, and then recognizing that civilization is who we are. That's something really we don't really think about. We think it's out there, that they've got it, they're controlling it. Civilization is who we are as a species. It's who we are as human beings.
Well,
And
sure.
when you feel that, and you feel the freedoms that the book encourages you toward, you realize, oh, everything I do can make a difference. And you feel more confident and more able, and less kind of, a lot of people feel like one down and, oh, I can't, and they're winning and all that. No, no, everything we do, if we're acting, particularly with that present moment, the freedom of that present moment, but if we're acting from the best of ourselves, we are creating a greater humanity as a consequence.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for continuing to write and advocate. And this has been a very refreshing conversation. We're going to send everyone out to read your book. Anything else you'd like to leave my listeners with?
If you're bogged down, read the book because it's you shouldn't be. There's no need to be bogged down. We can get free. Each moment is ours. Our life is ours, and civilization is ours, and it's meant to be that way. And all of them are domains of freedom.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your voice. I appreciate your message. Thank you. George, I do have a question that I ask all of the people I interview on this show, and I'm eager to hear your answer to that question. And that question is, if your money were writing you a love note, what would it be loving on you or thanking you for?
Let's see, how would it say this? Thank you for letting it be me, and for you being you. Thank you for um, just living your authentic life, and for knowing enough about me to work well with me in your process.
Living in functional partnership, in happy partnership.
There you go. Yeah.
I love it. Thanks, George.
Thank you. Yeah.